Do you live in a house? If the answer is yes, then you may have wondered, when was the first building made? The first homes were built around 9000 BCE by the people in the Neolithic period, also known as the New Stone Age period. The technology back then was very primitive, using bone, hide, stone, wood, grasses, animal fibers, and water. With these basic elements, they learned to craft things such as the axe, the chopper, the adze, the celt, and etc. Building materials included bones such as mammoth ribs, hide, stone, metal, bark, bamboo, clay, lime plaster, and much more. For example, the first bridges made by humans were probably just wooden logs placed across a stream, laddered timber, trackways. While the Neolithics also lived in caves and rock shelters, they built simple structures similar to a teepee or a toothpick. Other times they built huts like pit houses or crannogs, which were almost entirely a man-made quote-unquote island, which was basically just a house over a body of water on stilts. The Neolithics were also very fond of villages, with places like Skara Brae and Jericho. Remains of mud brick and post and lintel could be found at Skara Brae. The most iconic thing they built was Stonehenge. On to a segment called the largest building of the era. The largest building of this period of time was the Neolithic Longhouse. The Longhouse was a rectangular structure 5.5 to 7 meters wide, of variable length about 20 meters up to 45 meters. Outer walls were wattle and daub, sometimes alternating with split logs with pitched thatched roofs supported by rows of poles, 3 across. The Copper Age is the earliest part of the Bronze Age. Bronze is made when tin is added to copper and brass is copper with zinc. Copper came into use before 5000 BCE and bronze around 3100 BCE, although times may vary by region. Copper and bronze were used for the same types of tools as stones such as axes and chisels, but the new, less brittle, more durable material cut better. Bronze was cast into desired shapes and if damaged could be recast. A new tool developed in the Copper Age as the saw. Other uses of copper and bronze were to harden the cutting edge of tools, such as the Egyptians using copper and bronze for working soft stone, including quarrying blocks and making cut rock architecture. During the Bronze Age, the corbelled arch came into use as for beehive tombs. The wheel came into use but was not common until much later. Heavy loads were moved on boats and sledges, a primitive sled, or on non-rollers. The Egyptians began using stone temples with the post and lintel construction method, and the Greeks and Romans followed this style. The Iron Age lasted from circa 1200 BCE to circa 50 BCE that involved the widespread use of iron and steel in tools. One of such was the steel plane. They had ziggurats and exotic vaults. At first they used adobe and mud bricks, but then they transferred to fired bricks, which were used to make roads and temples with beautiful decoration. They used glazed surfaces to add a gleam to their art. Contrary to the popular usage of adobe and mud brick, the Egyptians used stones instead. Apart from that, the Egyptians are also credited with the invention of the following: the ramp, the lever, the lathe, the oven, the ship, paper, their irrigation system, the window, the awning, the door, glass, a form of plaster of Paris, the bath, the lock, the shadoof, weaving, a standardized measurement system, geometry, the silo, a method of drilling stone, the saw, steam power, proportional scale drawings, enameling, veneer, plywood, rope truss, and more. Apart from that, people are still baffled on how the Egyptians managed to get stones so high up in the sky. The pyramids of Giza remain the tallest structures in the world for 3,800 years. Let's see what the Romans are doing. Oh, they're building walls, and good ones too. The great Roman development in building materials was the use of hydraulic lime mortar called Roman cement. Previous cultures had used lime mortar, but by adding volcanic ash and pozzolana, the mortar would harden up under water. This provided them with a strong material for the bulk walling. The invention of the water wheel, sawmill, and arch were by the Romans. The Romans also began using glass for architectural purposes around 100 CE and used double glazing as insulated glazing. Roman roads included corduroy roads and paved roads, sometimes supported on a raft or pile foundations and bridges. Vitruvius gives details of many Roman machines. The Romans developed sophisticated timber cranes, allowing them to lift considerable weights to great heights. The upper limit of lifting appears to have been 100 tons. Trajan's column in Rome contains some of the largest stones ever lifted in a Roman building, and engineers are still uncertain exactly how it was achieved. By now, nothing has changed much. Most buildings in Northern Europe were constructed of timber until circa 1000 AD. In Southern Europe, adobe remained predominant. Brick continued to be manufactured in Italy throughout the period 600 to 1000 AD, but elsewhere, the craft of brickmaking had largely disappeared, and with it, the methods for burning tiles. Roofs were largely thatched. Houses were small and gathered around a large communal hall. Monasticism spread more sophisticated building techniques. The Renaissance period was a bit in the medieval period, so people were starting to overuse the dome shape. Whoa, that was a big jump. It's because nothing really happened between the Renaissance period and the 20th century. With the Second Industrial Revolution in the early 20th century, elevators and cranes made high-rise buildings and skyscrapers possible, while heavy equipment and power tools decreased the workforce needed. Other new technologies were prefabrication and computer-aided design.